Hello and welcome back to the Cinema Tirana YouTube channel. I am Stefano Tirana. Welcome to a community of amazing, thoughtful Christians trying to discern their way through modern media. Today we are talking about a new trailer for a documentary coming out on Discovery Plus. This documentary is on Hillsong Church. I've talked about Christian imagery in different movies before. I haven't talked about explicitly Christian media. I don't think anybody's claiming to be a Christian on this film. It's much more of a critical look from what I understand of Hillsong Church. My focus isn't so much on Hillsong, their theology, I'm sure I'll touch on that, but it's more on the filmmaking. What is Discovery Network doing to manipulate audiences to feel a certain way about Hillsong through the way things are cut together, through the music, etc., etc. I'll be watching it on here. I'll put the video in the bottom down there, and I'll be pausing midway through for commentary. Okay, let's get into it. Okay, some Catholic-style chanting.
Have you ever heard of Hillsong Church?
Hillsong is the celebrity church, right?
Bieber, Bono, Vanessa Hudgens, Kevin Durant.
It wasn't just this Australian startup anymore. It was just...
So that's the hook right there. Not that photo. You know, they're trying to get you, first thing, naming all the celebrities. Couple images of traditional churches, not like Hillsong. And this very provocative image of former pastor Carl Lentz and Canada's icon, Justin Bieber. Yeah, it's not a very flattering picture in terms of representing the church well, representing the church's stance on modesty, and I'm uncomfortable, so let's skip that picture.
Bieber's church. They've had over 3 billion views on YouTube.
Hillsong changed the way that many of us saw how church could be done.
They're huge now. They're huge.
You can make a real change if you come to Hillsong.
This was going to be a place where I could call my home. But that clearly wasn't the case, and it almost took my life.
Wow.
You can run on for a long.
So we got a couple of testimonials here, you know, pretty extreme. People have been hurt. It's really something for the audience to connect with.
Run on for a long time.
When we talk about Carl and purity, how could you shame me when I was so young, but you did this?
It was the most toxic thing I ever had to deal with.
So we see our first kind of example of juxtaposition in editing to make people think one thing while it's not exactly what's going on. Very common trick used in editing. So that woman was the woman that Carl Lentz had an extramarital affair with, and she says something about it being toxic, and probably what she's talking about, I'm gonna guess, is her relationship with Carl, and not Hillsong Church, but the way it's edited together is meant to signify that she is saying Hillsong Church is toxic.
Hey girl. Hi. Sooner or later, God will cut
There's
you
a little
down.
couple inserts of kind of stock B footage, a little sensual.
The beliefs that they put in you go deep. They really get in your head.
This is cool church.
There is a fine line between cult and culture.
So a very common phrase, we're using the term cult. It's something audiences are immediately gonna associate with, you know, very toxic, bad cults, terrible things happening, manipulation. I don't necessarily think Hillsong is entirely a cult. Not to be controversial here, but that's definitely, by putting this person in the interview and putting them on screen, especially in the trailer, that's kind of what they're trying to say here.
They spread their tentacles as far as they can.
They really do believe that they need to conquer Earth in order to make heaven on Earth.
So we got another phrase here. This is going to take a little bit to unpack. They're saying that they need to conquer earth to make heaven on earth. Let's break that down. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. This is like a common belief within a group of churches that have been identified by other people as the New Apostolic Reformation. These churches won't necessarily call themselves that, but generally their eschatology, their beliefs about the end times, is that everybody's going to be saved through their churches, and once everybody is saved, then the second coming will happen. There's a lot of disagreement, and the Bible isn't explicit about how the end times works. There's a lot of systems, a lot of beliefs amongst different denominations and traditions. I wouldn't call that heretical per se. You feel free to disagree. But it's for sure, when targeting a secular audience, it's going to make people that don't understand the full context of the belief structures skeptical of Hillsong Church. So it's definitely not a fair view of Hillsong. And with it being on Discovery, you think of science, you think of rationalism, you think of truth. They're very easily going to be able to manipulate truth and get people to think exactly what they want to believe.
Essentially, bring on the end times.
This is not a moral failure. It's a felonious criminal act.
$78 million in revenue, tax-free.
Manipulation, religious
So
trauma.
we're harping on money here. Another criticism of the church. Tale as old as time. People are always critical about the way the church uses money and resources.
Systemic cover-up.
Tremendous power.
Everything in your life is Hillsong.
This is not what I thought it was.
Hillsong, a mega church exposed. Okay. So let's end that there. So this is clearly a very critical view of Hillsong Church. You can tell by the way things are edited that they're trying to get audiences to believe something specific. I'm gonna take these out. So they're trying to get audiences to believe something specific about Hillsong. It's a very critical look. They're getting every kind of base covered. They're getting moral failings, which Hillsong is, criticisms can be true or not true. In this case, it is true that former pastor Carl Lentz had an extramarital affair. Attacks on the way the church spends money, attack on the culture, and attack on their beliefs while not giving the full story. It doesn't seem like there's two sides in this documentary. There's definitely one critical look at Hillsong Church. There's probably plenty of division already in the comments. A lot of people don't like Hillsong for various reasons, and they have very valid critiques of Hillsong's theology and strategy. And I think that's totally okay and totally right for Christians who are convicted of a certain way to call out other Christians of what they seem as unbiblical. But here it's a secular look on the church, so I'm not expecting them to understand the full ramifications of their theological practice or their strategy as it relates to how biblical something is. So this is another case of why it's so important to be critical of the media that we're looking at. It's very easy to come away from that trailer having a very set in stone view of how Hillsong as a church operate, while not looking at any of the benefits of how Hillsong have worked. Plenty of people have accepted Jesus in Hillsong churches. Their music has been very influential across the global church body as a whole, and they have very strong humanitarian efforts around the world. So whether or not you believe those things outweigh the problems of Hillsong Church, that's up to your own discretion. But this documentary, and at least the trailer, is hyper biased. So what are your thoughts? Are you excited for this documentary series to come out? Do you think this is unfair? Do you think this is problematic? Do you think this is about time? Let me know in the comments, and thank you for watching.